Welcome back, Karters! August has come to an end and some truly remarkable records have been set this month. In total, there were 24 records set across 11 tracks by the two most legendary players of our current era, MKDasher and Tyga. Now before we get into their accomplishments this month, I have one shout out that I must make before we start. For the past year, my friend Abel has been producing what is quite possibly the greatest Mario Kart video of all time. A nearly 90-minute documentary about the legendary MKDasher, covering his gameplay and contribution to the MKDS community. It is an amazing watch, and if you somehow haven't checked it out yet, I implore you to check it out as soon as this video ends. Link in the description. Okay, so let's look at some records, shall we? I think it would be a crime if I didn't start with what was one of the greatest records in Mario Kart DS history. A 14.993 run on Yoshi Falls Fast Lap, which Dasher set on the same day as the premiere of the MKDS2021 Documentary. If you watched last month's video, I mentioned that a sub 15 second lap was the last time he needed to become the first PRB god in the game's history. This run was 25 milliseconds faster than the record he set last month, so let's check out exactly what Dasher did in this run to get that sub. So I took my own look at the run, and then I asked Dasher for his thoughts, and here's how he did it. The first MT of the lap is a little bit tighter, giving him a better line for the shroom and a slightly tighter line up the slope. At the start of the bridge, Dasher is about a frame ahead of his previous run, and he stays even with the previous record to the second waterfall. He jumps earlier, getting more airtime, skipping a bigger part of the waterfall. This airtime is usually what you get if you go wide for the zipper before the waterfall. But since that's slower, Dasher needs to empty absurdly fast to get the same effect. Having the time to fit in all the required MTs starts all the way back at the MT before the bridge. In most attempts, he hops onto the slope and lands on the flat part of the track to begin charging his mini turbo. But it's possible to begin charging the drift on the slope and cleanly transition onto the flat road with no airtime or time loss. However, in most cases you will get tons of airtime, go wide, and lose the run. Dasher explains, "This is what I got here, and it's beneficial because it's a tight entry to the bridge and because you end up charging, and therefore releasing, the MT sooner in the bridge, which means you have a bit more time to fit in all the MTs you need to get to the second waterfall." Now you may ask, what does all that I just explained save time-wise? Well, it saves about 20 milliseconds at most. Yeah, this category's tough. At the end of the run, Dasher lost a small amount of time because of the wider line to the finish, but it was just enough to get him there with 6 milliseconds to spare. The last thing he told me is that if you were to combine the beginning of this run with his previous record's ending, the time would be around 14.97. But what matters is the sub was achieved and Dasher becomes the very first PRB god in the history of Mario Kart DS, completing his 13-year journey to the summit. There just aren't words for how special this time is, especially considering when it was set, who it was set by, and how it contributed to the most remarkable day in Mario Kart DS history. Congratulations, Dasher. You've done it, and we're so proud. Our next track this month was the site of a great battle between Tyga and Dasher as they fought for supremacy on Mario Circuit 1 in both the 3-lap and flap. Tyga shot first on August 9th with a 5 millisecond improvement to his own 3-lap record with a time of 37.543. This run's opener was not great, being the worst lap 1 of all records set this month. Tyga begins with an LMT which makes his line to the first turn a bit wide. He starts laps 2 and 3 with the same strat which forces him wide again. This run was saved by a fantastic lap 3 that took him from 27 milliseconds behind to 5 milliseconds ahead and set a new best split in the process. Dasher knew this run was far from perfect, so 3 days later he improved it by 48 milliseconds to 37.495 using a better set of strats. The main strat was to change the direction of the first MT on each lap from an LMT to an RMT, which enabled Dasher to drive a tighter line on the first straight. This strat saves the most time on the first lap, and he was 83 milliseconds ahead of Tyga into lap 2. Dasher loses a bit compared to Tyga's monster lap 3, but still clutches the first sub 37.5 run. Tyga didn't give a single care about better strats as he brute forced an improvement of 6 milliseconds just 3 days later using his own strat. This run featured a lap 1 that was 2 frames slower than Dasher, but he was very aggressive on lap 2, driving just 19 milliseconds behind the best split. He closed the run with a decent lap 3 for a final time of 37.489, but this record just didn't feel like a fitting end. 10 days later, Tyga came back for a better time and he incorporated David's strats to cut a substantial 85 milliseconds with a 37.404 run. Tyga even notes this in his comments under the run that he had reversed the direction of his MTs at the start of each of his laps. This run was very nice, featuring a solid lap 1, an okay lap 2, and a great lap 3. The sum of best splits on this track lies at 37.326, so there's still time left to save going forward. Now before we move on to the next track, we still have 3 more improvements to the fast lap to review. Starting on August 14th, Dasher took 11 milliseconds off Taiga's record with a 12.211 flap. This is a lap 2 fast lap, so Dasher must keep PRB until lap 2 for each attempt. What makes this different from any old lap of PRB is the way the start and end of the lap is handled. Dasher sets up the lap by doing an RMT followed by an LMT that sets his trajectory as close to the corner of the first turn as possible. The strat is pretty standard until the last turn. He releases an MT before the off-road and hops 3 times while his boost expires. On the third hop, just before the boost runs out, Dasher hits the shroom and slides tightly around the corner, keeping the boost until he crosses left of the finish line. Dasher mentioned that it is faster to hold out the drift instead of doing hops to the finish, because if you release your drift to hop, you will lose a bit of time to steering no matter what. The same finish is used at the end of 3 lap attempts as well. It wasn't until 8 days later that Tyga dropped with a massive 1 millisecond improvement, clocking in a 12.210 record. This run was just about identical to Dasher's run, so gotta love 1 millisecond improvements. Dasher knew that the record could be improved by much more, so he came back on the 25th with a 12.197 run, cutting 13 milliseconds and subbing 12.2. This run was very nice, and the cherry on top was a superb final shroom that was just so tight. We were all expecting Tyga to follow up with the 12.1 of his own, but I guess Dasher won this month. Nope, Tyga returns. At the very last hour of August, Tyga cuts another 15 milliseconds from the record and gets a 12.1 of his own, with a time of 12.182. The shroom and the finish to this run was somehow better than Dasher's, and with that, it is Tyga who is the true champion of Mario Circuit 1 this month. I'd like to extend a big congratulations to Dasher and Tyga for providing us with an entertaining back and forth this month, and good luck with your future karting. Tyga and Dasher would have another great back and forth this month on another category, Baby Park Fast Lap. If you thought a 12-second lap was short, strap in, because this one is only 8. Baby Park is the shortest track in Mario Kart DS, being just a simple oval with nothing else. It's just the Double Dash version, but without all the fun stuff that made that version cool. On August 16th, Dasher drove a time of 8.082, cutting a spectacular 1 millisecond off Tyga's record. The fast lap on Baby Park comes down to a few key things: the approach to the 2 turns, the shrooms, and the lap entry. Let's start with the first turn. This lap is done on lap 2 and an MT is released before the line in such a way that 2 mini turbos can be done and the first turn can be approached well while losing as little speed as possible. When the second MT is released, Dasher steers right and hops 3 times, just barely clipping the wall while keeping his cart angled towards the upcoming straight. Right as the cart has a clear path in front of it, Dasher hits the shroom to regain his speed and set up for the straight. The straight consists of quick snaking while adjusting your position to approach the next turn well. The same strat is applied to this turn as well, but Dasher shrooms a little earlier, just barely missing the right wall before performing an LMT and hopping to the line. So wait, this category is just take 2 turns really nice and don't mess up then? Well, the last element to a good time is the lap entry, which is a problem that arises from the lap timer glitch that I explained last month. If you want to know more, watch last month's video, but in short, the check for completing a lap and the lap time that is calculated aren't synced, so your run can be small fractions of a second faster or slower, depending on when and where you cross the finish line on each lap. What you need to know is that there is a specific set of lap 1 times that world record competitors are looking for, and they end in 16, 32, 49, 66, 82, and 99. The lap entry for this run ended in 86, which is pretty good, but not perfect. 10 days later, Tyga cut 4 milliseconds with a time of 8.078. If we're talking strategies, this run is identical to Dasher's. Both of Tyga's turns are excellent, though his first shroom looked a bit wide. Unfortunately, we don't know what Tyga's lap entry was for this run, but given that it was a world record, it was probably quite good. Now Dasher got a W so big that he had to use Wario, as he closed out his records this month with a further 6 millisecond improvement, bringing the time down to 8.072. This run was pretty freaking great, and everything was executed to fantastic precision. Dasher's first turn approach only does 2 hops, which is a little bit faster than the 3-hop strategy. Dasher snaking on the straight was very nice, only losing his boost for 2 frames. The second turn is approached with 3 hops, which is best, but Dasher commented that his execution was improvable there. The run ends pretty cleanly, but he does lose another 2 frames of his boost before he finished charging his last MT. Lastly, let's take a look at the lap entry. As we can see, it's perfect, ending in a 3-2, which means that he had the best lap entry possible and lost no time to bogus calculations. Great stuff from Dasher and Tyga once again. It's always a pleasure to see the two of them compete with one another and really push records to their limits. There was one last category that both Tyga and Dasher got records in this month, and it's on a fast lap that regular watchers of this series have become quite familiar with. For the 3rd month in a row, at least one record has been set on Donut Plains 1 fast lap. On August 26, Dasher clocked a time of 16.701, cutting 13 milliseconds from Tyga's time, while inching tantalizingly close to the sub that I've been saying is possible for months now. The highlight of this run was the ending. Dasher's shroom is excellent and takes a very tight line to the finish, but he doesn't do the wall clip. Thankfully, Tyga got the run I was raving about for months, as he crushed the 16.7 barrier with a time of 16.632. This run was so good. Tyga matches Dasher's execution throughout the entire run up to the final turn and does the unthinkable. He finally gets the wall clip, and it's utterly excellent one at that. The wall clip put him at a fantastic angle for the finish, and Tyga reacted beautifully and clutched an incredibly tight ending for a nice 69 millisecond improvement to the record. As for where this record goes from here, I'm really unsure. 16.5 seems like kind of a stretch, especially since any improvement absolutely must get an ending as good as Tyga's. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but until then, one more big congrats to both Tyga and Dasher for your improvements here this month. Truly remarkable stuff from you two. Okay, we've covered 14 records this month so far, 7 from Dasher and 7 from Tyga, but from here on, it's just Tyga, and we still have 10 more records from him to review. So without further ado, let's start the Tyga show. Luigi Circuit PRB Fast Lap. Tyga gets a new record of 22.646, 24 milliseconds faster than Dasher's previous record. Performed on lap 2, Tyga drops off the booster and uses PRB to cut across the grass, the chain chomp patch, and the dirt on the big hairpin turn. At the end of the turn, Tyga does some funky hops and drops down to PRB back up the hill. On the last turn, Tyga releases an MT and has an excellent shroom to close out the record. Next, Figure 8 Circuit non-PRB flap. Tyga beats Matt Utter by about a frame with a time of 24.256. Tyga shows no fear and no signs of clipping the grass as he makes his way around the first turn. Unrelenting speed and determination carries him to the second turn, where he executes an amazing shroom, returning to the road for the final straight. An absolutely bonkers MT at the end of the straight all but ensures the new record for Tyga. Next, Figure 8 Circuit PRB flap. Tyga decides that one flap record on this track isn't good enough, so he sets another one. Starting on the left side of the finish line, Tyga expertly maintains BLS PRB around the first turn and gets tantalizingly close to the wall. This shroom was nuts, but when we're talking about Tyga, this shroom is actually pretty standard. Closing out the run, he beats his own record by 35 milliseconds to the time of 23.734. Next, Peach Circuit non-PRB 3-lap. Tyga destroys Beta's previous record by 165 milliseconds and sets 2 best splits in the process. Lap 1, excellent first corner, great recovery from the off-road, and nice ending, 18.380, best split. Lap 2, excellent first corner, great recovery from the off-road, and nice ending. 8 milliseconds off the best split though, sorry. Lap 3, excellent first corner, great recovery, and nice shroom. 17.814, best split. Final time, 54.555. Nice decibels, mate. Fast lap time, Rob standard, 2 shrooms, double the power. Awesome first corner, nice snaking, and a cool shroom across the grass. Time for shroom, release an MT, hop into the grass, shroom, hop, hop, drift. Get to the end quick. Final time 17.407, 30 millisecond improvement over another beta record slain. Next, Cheap Cheap Beach, non-PRB 3-lap. Taiga continues to bully beta and taking another one of his world records. Sneaking it in at the very end of the month, he cuts 66 milliseconds off the record and is now just 87 milliseconds off the PRB record set all the way back in 2012. Lap 1, fastball, spin landing, shroom through the water, trust the sand, money. Lap 2, weird alignment, no spin landing, nice recovery though, go through the water anyways, jungle time, nice. Lap 3, fastfall spin landing combo, nice snaking on the beach, MTs to the end, world record baby. Taiga improves upon all 3 laps and is poised to attack the PRB record in September. Next, Yoshi Circuit 3-lap. Taiga takes another 98 milliseconds off his own world record, this time using Toad, who is lighter than Yoshi, losing less speed off-road. New strat alert. After this hairpin turn, Taiga snakes instead of delaying a mini turbo and spends more time boosting. He does this well on laps 1 and 3, but on lap 2 he goes a bit wide and is forced to readjust. Let's do a quick run through. Lap 1, use PRB from boost to drive over the grass. Tunnel, 3 MTs, precise drifts around Yoshi's scale things? New strat, nice straight, lap transition. Lap 2, no PRB, no PROB. Taiga goes through the grass anyways. Tunnel, scale, new strat, but wide version. Ending, 1 millisecond loss to world record, fail. Lap 3, very nice first half, great new strat. Shroom time, alignment, release the MT, hop into the grass, shroom, steer tight and finish off-road to the right of the line. Another new addition. Really solidly executed run here, and if you want to know more specifics, please check out my June recap video where I go over a lot more stuff in detail there. Okay, so the last records from Taiga this month actually require a bit more time and analysis. So to help with this, I brought the queen of DK Pass herself, Marissa, to give an experienced world record level analysis. On August 30th, Taiga demolished his own world record by 285 milliseconds with a 142.703 3-lap run. The first half is mostly just a matter of keeping good lines and staying as close as possible to the walls and edges of the track. While going around the first off-road section, Taiga does some very precise LMTs, staying as close as possible to the snow. For this section and the uphill part after, it is important to space the MTs a lot in order to keep your boost. You can even see how precise some of the MTs are in this section based on the character's movements. Going around the hill, you need to start doing LMTs as soon as possible, and the last LMT you need to stay as far left as possible to be optimal. You can see this part is done well since Taiga stays in between the line on the road and the snow. Before the first jump, the last LMT, you need to keep holding left after you charge the first spark, then charge the second spark and jump. By facing that far left, you can neutral hop with a very good angle, which leads into the next section very nicely. For the second jump, you need to release the RMT soon and jump as early as possible. The sooner you jump, the quicker you can do the next RMT after landing, so you can steer right a bit to keep as close as possible to the wall. You then need to jump really far left, all the way from being close to the right wall to being close to the left wall. For the slip drift here, you need to get less airtime the closer you are to the left wall, and the less airtime you get, the faster you'll get through this next section. Being pretty far on the left after the slip drift also sets you up for a really good downhill. If you're further right, you'll get more air from the slip drift and a much worse line going downhill and lose a lot of time. Which is really important at this level. Not only do you need to get the strat with all the MTs, you need to get the MTs in the correct spots and keep very good lines as well. You want to face as straight as possible as you get to the zipper, which is why Taiga does a little drift after the last MT, but doesn't hold it for too long. By jumping pretty early off the zipper, you can land in an ideal spot. This part is extremely difficult to do consistently, and the landing is often very different from my experience. However, Taiga is really consistent at it in this run, which is one of the most impressive parts of this run. He gets a little bounce after landing, which sets him up to get a good line on the last bend. You want to stay as close as possible to the red fence, since the closer you are to it, the less airtime you get in your hops. He then transitions into sideways MTs. The way he lands after the zipper and goes super tight around the last bend sets him up for a really good line into these sideways MTs. So in summary, the most important parts of this track by far are the downhill and ending section, and Taiga keeps really good lines throughout the downhill, plus a really good tight angle around the last bend, which is a big part of why his time is so good. Even a minor mistake in these sections can lose so much time. Puddings, you forgot the shroom! So for the shroom, having a good line at the last RMT beforehand sets your line up really well. That allows you to do a fast LMT and a slightly delayed second LMT into the hop into the shroom. You want to stay fairly close to the wall, but not too close to get the best line hopping into the shroom. Taiga's shroom in the 3-lap is a bit improvable since he steered left a bit and lost a little speed exiting the off-road. Also, the use of Toad is interesting, since he may have helped Taiga stay tighter hopping into the shroom, but I still feel like Dry Bones is faster with a really good line though, but it's a tiny difference either way. The only real improvable parts in this 3-lap that I see are the part after the first jump on lap 1, which was pretty wide, and the slip drifts going downhill could all be a bit better since they could all be closer to the wall and get less airtime. The shroom exit was also a little bit slow. It's a really crazy consistent run considering how hard the track is and how many precise little things there are. The best known splits can still be pushed further, since Taiga has a low 0.4 lap 1, a low 0.3 lap 2 is definitely possible as well. Lap 3 I suppose can go down to a low 33.7. Based on Marissa's assessment, the current final resting place for the category lies at about a low 142.5. So Taiga only being 0.2 off of that is very impressive. Now if you were an observant MKDS fan, you'd know that we have one more record to talk about on the fast lap this month. Taiga shaved 20 milliseconds off Marissa's record on the same day with a 33.676 run. Let's hear Marissa's thoughts on it. For Taiga's flap, I think everything up until the downhill is very good but not perfect. The part where he steers right before the slip drift could be a little bit better, and the slip drift itself could be a little better too, being a bit closer to both walls. Ending looks very good but not perfect. It can go down to a low 0.6 probably, and I assume 33.5 is possible but not happening anytime soon. I want to give an enormous thanks to Marissa for her huge help with analysis for this section. I don't think I would have noticed any of the things you mentioned without your help. And of course, congrats to Taiga for crushing some already fantastic records this month. Don't think anyone saw half of these coming. Oh, also one more thing. Taiga's record on DK Pass this month brought the sum of all 3-lap records under 42 minutes to 41:59.794. The last minute barrier broken in MKDS was all the way back on June 29th, 2009, when Ben Stoneman's 157.757 Waluigi pinball brought the total below 43 minutes. This will likely be the last time in the game's history a barrier like this will be broken.
So, you know what Pudding said about DK Pass having the final records of the month? Well, that was a lie. They totally didn't forget about this next record, and there's no way they wrote this segment after the entire script was already done. But enough about what may or may not have happened. Let's get into Taiga's last record of the month. On August 31st, Taiga beat Dasher's over 2-year-old record on Delfino Square 3-lap by 63 milliseconds with a time of 1:29.019. The run starts with some pretty standard snaking up the slope until the fountain, where Taiga releases an RMT, hops, and steers around it, coming very close to hitting the wall to the left. Entering the town section, Taiga carefully spaces his MTs to avoid hitting any walls, but stays at max speed for as long as possible. This set of stairs on the straightaway is really tricky to navigate, especially with the BLS. Taiga charges his MT and releases it around halfway down the staircase, then does some precise hops around the corner as his boost runs out. Taiga gets a quick MT on this next turn, then gets back to hopping in order to align for the dock cut. The track proceeds across the bridge, but instead Taiga goes left towards the dock. The only thing between the road and the dock below is some water and a whole lot of air. With some quick MTs and a well-timed hop off the ledge, Taiga flies across the water, steering right in the air, and lands onto the dock, with a small bounce. Taiga quickly charges an RMT and drifts up the dock and back onto the track. This is a bit different to Dasher's approach, which uses a double hop on the dock, but both strategies are probably about the same. Taiga proceeds to do some tight snaking across the next curve, then hops twice to make sure he gets the perfect angle as he crosses the bridge. This bridge moves up and down on a cycle, and going across the bridge while it's down is much faster than getting all of that air. The boost pads on the bridge allow Taiga to use PRB to drive through the grass just before the last turn, while not losing any speed. As he's coming up the slope, he delays the last MT until he returns to flat ground and swiftly hops over the remaining grass. Releasing this MT any earlier would send your kart flying and give you a really bad line. Releasing a couple more MTs, Taiga begins lap 2. This lap is pretty much the same in terms of lines, and it's worth noting that the bridge is down again. This lap was driven really well, but lost 149 milliseconds when compared to Dasher's split, leaving Taiga 76 milliseconds behind Dasher's record. However, if there's anything we learned within the last year, it's that Taiga defies the odds. On lap 3, instead of jumping to the dock, Taiga goes across the bridge and sets up for a shroom shortcut across the mud. Approaching the cut, Taiga loses his boost for a few frames, but before losing too much speed, Tyga uses his shroom and zooms across the mud. Now, perhaps the only thing harder than entering this shortcut is exiting it. Before the cart is fully out of the mud, Tyga begins an RMT. With some precise control, he's able to not only escape without hitting the wall, but with a fully charged MT, leaving him at top speed. The recovery might look awkward, but it's handled well, trust me. And those luxurious world record cycles allow Tyga to drive across a flat bridge once again. Finally, Tyga finishes his run and hops to the finish line, closing out with a new best split. The splits of this run more than prove for the potential of a 1:28 time from Tyga, if he chooses to keep playing in September. Huge shout out to Tyga for an amazing set of world records this month. The stuff you're doing is nothing short of incredible, and it's really challenging the limits of MKDS. Looking forward to these next months to see what track gets visited next. Congratulations, Tyga, you're the man.
Well, that's all of them. Thanks to everyone still watching along to this point, learning and being entertained by all the incredible records set this month. With 24 records, the 2021 total is up to 131, which is already more than 8 of the last 9 yearly totals with 4 months to spare. But it wasn't just the quantity of records this month that made it special. It was the quality, like Dasher's incredible sub-15 on Yoshi Falls, or Taiga's 69 millisecond cut on Donut Plains, and the rivalry on Mario Circuit 1 that resulted in nearly 150 milliseconds being taken off the shortest 3-lap in the game. It was the release of the Tech Tutorial, a one-stop resource for new karters to learn and master the game's mechanics. It was the premiere of MKDS2021, a celebration of some of the game's finest moments, which had a live audience of over 100 people and has since amassed over 25,000 views as of the time of writing. It's players from every era of Mario Kart DS history all joining a big VC, picking up the DS and playing once again. It's Dasher becoming the very first PRB god in the game's history, the return of veteran player Dylan Gaunt, and the documentary premiering all on the exact same day. It was just so special to watch new and old players alike getting excited about an experience that they all share. Okay, but enough of the sappy crap. We all know how frickin' cool MKDS is already, jeez. Thank you so much to Abel, Quantum, Peak-Alex, Dasher, Leo, and Marissa for your awesome help with writing, proofreading, and analysis for this video. It would not have been possible without you. Also, huge thanks to my guest voice Mikey for their help in playing an essential part in this monthly transition. And also, thanks to everyone in MKDS Network who motivated me, dealt with my antics, and just chatted a bit. I'd list you all here, but there's just not enough time. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone out there continuing to enjoy MKDS to this day. You all rock. And with that, my name is Puddings. Stay classy, Carters, and may the MTs be with you.